This is a story about a young man so beautiful that everyone who saw him fell instantly in love with him, and so cold that he loved no one back. His name was Narcissus, and we still use his name today. A narcissist, we say, meaning someone consumed by themselves. But the original story is sadder and stranger than the modern word suggests. For Narcissus was not punished for vanity in the ordinary sense. He was punished by being made to feel, just once, the very thing he had inflicted on so many others: hopeless, unanswerable love. And the cruel twist was that the person he fell in love with was himself. How does a man come to die of love for his own reflection in a pool of water? And what happened to the gentle nymph whose heart he broke first? That is the story you'll hear tonight. The tale of Echo and Narcissus, the voice and the reflection, two of the saddest figures in all of Greek myth. If you enjoy these stories, take a moment to subscribe. It genuinely keeps this channel alive, and tell me in the comments which myth you'd like next. Now settle in, and let's meet the most beautiful and the most lonely young man in the ancient world. Narcissus was the son of a river god and a nymph, and from the moment he was born, it was clear that he had been given an almost unearthly beauty. As he grew into a young man, that beauty only deepened, until he was the most lovely creature anyone in the region had ever seen, so beautiful that everyone who laid eyes on him, young women and young men alike, fell instantly and helplessly in love. But Narcissus cared for none of them. He was as cold as he was beautiful, proud and indifferent, and he turned away every admirer with the same careless contempt as if their love were nothing to him beneath his very notice. Many hearts were broken on the hardness of Narcissus, and he did not care in the slightest. When Narcissus was born, his mother had gone to the famous blind prophet Tiresias and asked whether her son would live a long life. And Tiresias had given a strange answer, the kind of riddle that only makes sense once it is far too late. "The boy will live to a ripe old age," the prophet said, "so long as he never comes to know himself." No one understood what that could possibly mean. How could knowing yourself be dangerous? But the prophecy was waiting, patient, for the day it would come true. Among the many who had come to grief over Narcissus was a mountain nymph named Echo, and her story is a tragedy in its own right, even before she ever saw his face. Echo had once been a lively and talkative spirit who loved nothing more than to chatter and tell stories. But she had made a powerful enemy. The goddess Hera, the queen of the gods, had been searching the mountains one day, trying to catch her husband Zeus in one of his affairs, and Echo, to protect the other nymphs, had kept Hera talking and distracted with her endless chatter, allowing the others to slip away. When Hera realized she had been deliberately delayed, her anger fell upon Echo, and the punishment she chose struck at the very heart of who the nymph was. Never again, Hera decreed, would Echo be able to speak freely. From now on, she would lose the power of her own words entirely, able only to repeat the last few words that someone else had just spoken to her and nothing more. The chatterbox nymph was silenced, left with only a borrowed, echoing voice. And it was in this state, robbed of her own words, that Echo wandered the woods one day and caught sight of the young man, Narcissus, out hunting, and fell, instantly and completely, in love. From that moment, Echo followed Narcissus everywhere he went, hiding among the trees, watching him, her love growing with every step, and utterly unable to tell him how she felt. For she could not speak first. She could only wait, in an agony of longing, for him to say something, anything, that she might be able to echo back. She burned to call out to him, to confess her love, and the words would not come. Her voice was no longer her own. Day after day she trailed him silently through the woods, loving him hopelessly, a prisoner of her own broken voice. And then, at last, came her chance. One day, Narcissus, separated from his hunting companions, called out into the woods, "Is anyone there?" And Echo, seizing the moment, called back the only word she could, "There, there." Narcissus, hearing the voice but seeing no one, called again, "Come to me." And Echo, her heart leaping, answered with his own words flung joyfully back, "Come to me, come to me." and stepped out from the trees, rushing toward him with her arms open, ready at last to embrace the young man she loved. It was the bravest thing she had ever done, and it went horribly wrong. When Narcissus saw the nymph hurrying toward him with open arms, his cold heart felt nothing but disgust. He recoiled from her, pulling away in contempt, and he cried out the cruelest words he could find. "Get away from me! I would rather die than let you have me." And poor Echo, who could only repeat, was forced to fling his own rejection back in a broken whisper. "Let you have me! Let you have me!" the words turning to ash in her mouth even as she spoke them. Humiliated and heartbroken, she fled deep into the forest to hide her shame. And from that day, Echo began to waste away. Her grief was so total that she could not eat or rest. She withered with longing for the young man who had spurned her, growing thinner and fainter, until at last her body wasted away entirely, and nothing was left of her but her voice. To this day, the Greek said, that is all that remains of the nymph, Echo, a voice in the lonely places, in caves and valleys and empty halls, still doomed to do nothing but repeat the last words that others speak, an echo with no body, calling back the words of strangers forever. But Narcissus, who had caused all this, went on his careless way, entirely unmoved. He had broken one heart too many, and the gods were watching. Echo was not the only one Narcissus had wounded, and at last one of his rejected admirers, driven to despair, lifted up a prayer to the heavens for justice. May he himself fall in love one day, the spurned lover prayed, and may he never be able to possess the one he loves. May Narcissus feel, just once, exactly what he has made the rest of us feel. It was a simple prayer, and a terrible one, and it was heard. The goddess who heard it was Nemesis, the divine spirit of retribution, whose task was to punish exactly this kind of cruelty, the arrogance of those who scorn the love of others and grow proud and cold in their own beauty. Nemesis judged that the prayer was just. Narcissus had dealt out hopeless, unanswerable love to dozens of people and felt nothing. Now he would learn what it was to want something with your whole being and never be able to have it. The goddess set her punishment in motion, and it required nothing more elaborate than leading Narcissus on a hot day to a particular pool of water, a quiet, still, clear pool in a hidden glade that no one had ever disturbed, its surface as smooth and perfect as a mirror. Tired and thirsty from a hunt, Narcissus knelt down at the edge of that pool to drink. And he made the mistake of looking down. Gazing into the still water, Narcissus saw a face looking back at him, and it was the most beautiful face he had ever beheld. He did not understand at first that he was looking at his own reflection. He saw only a breathtaking young person gazing up at him from the water, with bright eyes and perfect features, and in an instant, the cold heart of Narcissus, which had never loved anyone, was utterly overthrown. He fell in love, desperately, completely, for the first and only time in his life, with the beautiful stranger in the pool. He leaned closer, and the face leaned closer too. He smiled, and it smiled back. He reached down to touch it, to embrace it, and the moment his hand broke the surface of the water, the beautiful face shattered into ripples and vanished. He drew back in dismay, and slowly the water stilled, and there it was again, gazing up at him as longingly as before. Narcissus was transfixed. He could not leave. Every time he reached for the beautiful figure, it dissolved away, and every time he stilled himself, it returned, always there, always just beyond his touch, always seeming to love him exactly as much as he loved it, and always impossible to hold. He had found, at last, a love as hopeless as the ones he had inflicted on everyone else. Narcissus could not tear himself away from the pool. He forgot his hunting, forgot his companions, forgot food and drink and sleep. He could think of nothing but the beautiful face in the water, and he lay at the water's edge gazing down at it, reaching for it, speaking to it, pleading with it to rise up to him, and it would only ever mirror his own longing back at him. And then, at last, the most terrible understanding of all came over him. He realized the truth. The beautiful figure in the pool was no other person. It was himself, his own reflection, the one love in all the world that he could never ever possess because it was him. The prophecy of Tiresias had come true at last. Narcissus had come to know himself, and the knowledge was killing him. But even knowing the truth, he could not stop loving the image, could not bring himself to leave. And so he simply stayed there, wasting away with hopeless longing for himself, just as Echo had wasted away with hopeless longing for him until the life faded out of him at the edge of the pool. And where his body had lain, the old stories say, his body was gone, and in its place there grew a small and lovely flower, with white petals and a golden heart, bending its head down toward the water. The flower we still call the Narcissus to this day. The story of Echo and Narcissus is built out of two perfect, matching halves, and that symmetry is the whole point of it. Echo could only ever repeat the words of others. She had no voice of her own, no way to reach out, and she wasted away loving someone who would not love her back. And Narcissus could only ever love his own reflection. He had no way to reach beyond himself, no room in his heart for anyone else, and he wasted away loving someone who could never love him back, because that someone was him. The two of them are mirror images, one trapped in nothing but the voices of others, the other trapped in nothing but himself, and both of them, in the end, dying of a love that could never be returned. That is why the story has lasted and why his name became a word we still use. It is not really about a vain young man admiring himself at a pond. It is about the terrible isolation of a person who cannot truly see anyone but himself, who looks at the whole world and finds only his own reflection looking back. Narcissus could not love another person, and so the only love left to him was a love that was bound to destroy him. The pool simply showed him, at last, what he had been gazing at all along. If this is the kind of story you want more of, take a moment to subscribe and tell me in the comments which myth I should tell next. Sleep well.